Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Raw Men podcast. Thursday, October 30th, the night before Halloween. And this is our special Halloween special. We have as our guest the Dastur of the Dakhma of Angra Mainyu, member of the Satanic Temple that recently took the Oklahoma, state to court over religious freedom rights. So he's working out his microphone issues right now. And in the meantime, I'm going to turn this over to Mark to give our pitch.
All right. Thanks. While we're waiting for Dastur Adam Daniels to come on and tell us what's been going on in his world, thank you again, everybody, for tuning in to the next episode of the Ramen. I want to remind you this episode is sponsored by Bedtime Bible Stories. BedtimeBibleStories.com is the explicit yet verbatim and artfully drawn stories from the Bible that you know and love, only graphically drawn, so you can really get a feel and a taste for what is being said and how just clearly fucked it is in a lot of ways. So BedtimeBibleStories.com. Check it out. You can find it on Amazon. They going to be sponsored a couple more episodes of our show, and we're very happy to have them. Aaron, while we're waiting for him to get his mic worked out here, you had met with him recently in Arizona or New Mexico?
Oklahoma.
Is that right? Oklahoma, that's right. Right, the place where he's actually taken them to court. Tell us about that.
Well, I was giving a presentation in Oklahoma City, and I realized that this was shortly after they had, I think in January, to put up a statue, a $25,000 statue of Baphomet at the courthouse. We're getting some background noise. Is that you, Adam?
That's good. You got him. I can hear you. It's a little light, but yep, I think you're coming through.
I'm coming through? Okay.
Yeah, it's faint. Let's see if we can do something about the volume. Your picture's frozen too, but that's not as important right now.
Okay, volume.
I'm going to grab some headphones so they don't cause feedback.
So, while we're waiting, I want to talk a little bit more about something that I'm personally involved in right now, and has been
please.
very, very, very powerful. I've gotten tons of messages and emails about it. That's the Normalize Atheism campaign. I'm wearing a shirt right now. It's got the hashtag for Normalize Atheism. It's been a eye-opening experience for me. At the beginning of the month, I started using this hashtag, and it's just taken off. It's been used about 40,000 times this month already. And the stories that I'm seeing from people are as wide-ranging as normalize atheism, so we aren't cutting heads off in third world countries, to normalize atheism because I make cookies with my daughter too. So I encourage everyone to go on Twitter, use the hashtag normalizeatheism, start telling your stories about why we should normalize atheism and why it's important, because just like with the Out campaign for gays and lesbians, the more we talk about it, the more people come out about who they are, the easier it is for everyone. So I think that's an important thing, and I'm glad I got a chance to talk about it.
All right, thank you, Mark. Adam Daniels, are you online and operating?
I'm online. I don't know if I'm operating.
No, you sound good.
Yeah, I can hear you now. So,
all right, beautiful.
I spoke with you some time ago when I was preparing my presentation in Oklahoma City, and I would like you to refresh our audience in what it was that your group was doing. I was also told that I had you confused between the Satanic Temple and the Dakhma of Angra Mainyu, right? It's still you in either case, right? It was you that was taking the state to court.
It's a two-way sword. Lucian was the one who originally started the getting the money together and everything, and then he came to me asking me to sign the affidavit to go ahead with submitting the application, and I told him no, but my wife went ahead and signed it for him. And then he had our backing as an actual church, and her being an actual ordained priestess, to submit the application to Oklahoma. Now, the person who is actually suing is a Baptist minister, along with the ACLU, that are actually suing the state of Oklahoma.
Okay, but they're suing over the existing Ten Commandments. Your suit was different. Your suit was for religious rights for Satanists, and
Yeah,
for right. Okay, so if you can go ahead and fill in our listeners on what it was that you did or your group did to be involved in all that, and how the sequence of events said, real quick, maybe. Well, not real quick. Go ahead and tell us what happened.
Okay. Well, as everybody's aware, the Supreme Court said there has to be separation of church and state, and such things like the Ten Commandments shouldn't be up. But down here in wonderful Oklahoma, they decided that they were going to make a way around the law by it being privately funded. So when that was confronted with the Baphomet statue, the monkey statue, this flying spaghetti monster, and everything else, they had a big fit and they created a moratorium. That moratorium put everything on hold until the court case was over about the Ten Commandments. And so that sat in stalemate. We did go ahead and put in the application. We put in all the paperwork to get that erected up. Then in the meantime, the Satanic Temple was trying to do a black mass in Massachusetts, which the Catholics got shut down. And so I decided that we're legal, we're a church, there's nothing they can do, and we started it up here in Oklahoma.
Okay, so you did get a chance to do a black mass in the Oklahoma City Civic Center.
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, I would have probably gone to that. I mean, it wouldn't have been the first time that I'd seen Black Sabbath in the Civic Center, but I wasn't aware that they were doing that. I would have so loved to have been there to see all of that, all of the protests that was going on. Can you tell us about the protests? I know you weren't witnessing it because you're inside, but tell us some about that.
Well, I kept up with Jared. I can't think of Jared's last name, but he's the guy who hands out the permits because you got to sign a permit here in Oklahoma City to do any type of protest. And through him, eventually Detective Kimmett came to me at my house and we discussed everything. And when he explained to me how many protesters are going to be there, how many groups they actually diverted, and basically they were shutting down 2 groups out of Tulsa because they like to cause trouble a lot. And then he went over the full plan with me, and then I had to go over it with my folks, and even got to the point that I was suggested by the Oklahoma City Police Department to call my children's schools and make sure that they keep an extra eye on them so they don't get taken from the bus or anything else. The protest outside got stupid.
So let me just soak this in for a moment.
Okay.
The Satanists have to call the police to protect their children from the Christians.
Yes, sir.
Okay, just want to make sure I'm on the right field with you there. Go ahead.
Well, I have 2 handicapped children, so they ride the short bus. And anyway, so we got plans arranged with the lead detective for the whole thing. We got several death threats over the internet. We had several things that had to be investigated. I got all kinds of, I got a book in the mail that said 23 minutes in hell. I had Catholic amulets mailed to me. It was just ridiculous. And by the time everybody got out there, if you actually look at the protest, the Catholics bust in a bunch of old people from all over the country. So they can have a big hip-de-hoo about they had 1,200 Catholics or whatever here, but they were all bust in because they had nothing else to do. They were retired. So I wasn't that impressed. Then they had the arrest of the gentleman who was actually catcalling us and stuff while we were trying to get the bands and everybody in right before the show. And they arrested that guy and took him down the street to the county jail. And then something about some old lady was trying to scream at us through the doors, and they arrested her. And then if you watch the videos, you can see the crowd where all the Christians are banging on each other, and everybody's trying to convert everybody to their brand of Christianity. It was really stupid.
Yeah, I did see some video on that, and I thought that part of it was hilarious, that you have a reported 600 Christian protesters show up, and they all have a common enemy, and yet what I saw in video was how the Protestants were berating the Catholics for their love of sin, and then there was another group of guys that were all wearing these weird purple robes that were declaring themselves more Christian than everybody else because they actually followed all these, Leviticus verses that nobody adheres to, and all of this absurdity. There was some serious whack jobs in that group of protesters.
What was that George Carlin said? My God has a bigger dick than your God.
Yeah, and if you don't believe, kill him. Because if you don't have evidence on which to base an argument, then violence is about the only thing you can do. Because anytime you want to argue in favor of your religion, it's because I said so. And then where does it go from there if they don't accept because I said so as a reason? All right. So what do you see as the future for the statue of Baphomet or the Ten Commandments now?
Well, if Governor, what's her name, Fallon, then she can't get my name right. I'll try not to get hers right. If she goes through with actually putting it back up, I got a feeling the whole thing's going to crumble, because by that point they have to hear it in court since they're in a moratorium. But my understanding is from both our side along with the Hindu side that they're going to push. If they put the Ten Commandments up, they're definitely going to push to put theirs up. There's no getting around that. So there's going to be a huge lawsuit, or they're going to decide not to re-erect the Ten Commandments. I'm not sure, though.
No, what I've seen here is one of the arguments that they were making in the periphery. I don't know where this was coming from. Is they were talking about that the Baphomet statue didn't have any historic significance relating to the courthouse because it didn't have anything to do with laws, whereas they say that the Ten Commandments did. And now that I think it's becoming very quickly a consensus among archaeologists and historians and so forth that Moses didn't actually exist, and the Ten Commandments didn't actually exist, and even in the scriptures it was never 10 commandments to begin with. It was many different commandments just between Exodus 20 and Exodus 23, and that what the book actually describes as the Ten Commandments was the set of 10 that is listed in Exodus 34, and that was the one that includes the fourth commandment where people were supposed to sacrifice their firstborn child, and it's the 10th commandment, you are forbidden from boiling baby goats in their own mother's milk. That's what the Bible says is the Ten Commandments. That's the set that actually got in the Ark of the Covenant, and that was the covenant between God and Israel. All of that's being misrepresented. They're saying that that somehow was not between God and Israel anymore, that it's between God and the entire world now, and that this is the establishment of our American government. We have history books here in Texas and other places that are trying to say that the Constitution was founded as a covenant between God and Moses, and that the founding fathers were inspired by Moses and John Calvin, and of course we can show through a number of different documents that that's absolutely not the case, that the founding fathers did not adhere to monarchy, and they didn't revere Moses over anyone else, and never made reference to the Ten Commandments at all. And in fact, as I gave a demonstration a few months ago showing that the Ten Commandments, as they are recognized in the United States by Christian culture, are not represented in the American legal system. Yes, it's illegal to commit murder and it's illegal to steal things, just like it is everywhere else, but it is illegal everywhere else to do those things, and that was already illegal before the alleged time of Moses. We know that because it's also in the Stela of Law from Hammurabi, which predates Moses by at least 500 years, and we know that all of the other things that are in the Ten Commandments have no legal representation in this country at all. I mean, to worship other gods, we're based on freedom of religion. So the first and second commandments right away are thrown out the window. Adultery is perfectly legal. Divorce is perfectly legal. Slavery now is illegal. So we go against the Ten Commandments completely. What if we want to argue the historic significance for a monument for the Ten Commandments, then I would suggest that we need to find somebody that worships Shamash and have them bring up the Stela of Law and have that erected at the courthouse instead, and then see how they respond to that, because that's where the legal system actually stems from.
No, I agree with you wholeheartedly, but a lot of people don't take into accord that our particular Constitution was based off the Iroquois Constitution, and along with the Masonal ideas set forth by Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Paine. And that's why I thought it was so hilarious when they told me that I was trying to rip God out of the fabric of American society. That was great. I haven't really talked about this to anybody, but I got a phone call from my mother, who was a devout Catholic, and she even ganged up on me with my grandfather, and they tried to tell me I had no right to do what I was doing. It was a really stupid conversation. Then they wanted to argue with me about the background of Baphomet actually being from the Templars and yada, yada, yada. So, honestly, if we want to erect anything about any laws, I think we should find something with the Iroquois Constitution and throw that out.
Sounds like a good angle. All right, so did you hear anything about arguing against Baphomet on historical grounds?
They tried to at one point very shortly on News 4 when it first broke with us, but I mean, considering that Baphomet is really a Templar thing that moved into an Epiphus Levi thing, historically I don't think there's any grounds to stand on per se when it comes to the law. So I don't know. Just like with you, I agree. The Ten Commandments, they have no standing. So, but if they're
Okay.
going to let one varsity up, they should let another.
And now we mentioned briefly that they're going to have to put the Ten Commandments back up, but we didn't really explain to the listeners why they have to put it back up if they already had it up there before.
Because you had some fruitcake out of northeast Oklahoma decide to drive down, roll through, urinate on the thing first, then drive through it, knock it down, run off, go to the new federal building, spit and cuss on Obama's picture as they tackled him to the ground.
Well, all of that makes perfect sense because a stone monument will fall more easily if you hit it with a car if you have previously urinated on it, because then it's all soft and wet and squishy at the bottom. I'm sure that was the logic behind that. So was there ever an explanation as to why he's attacking the president and why he knocked over the commandments and what they have to do with each other, and who was this guy?
From what I read, he was a gentleman who, they said he was bipolar, wasn't taking his medication, but if he's talking about hearing and seeing Lucifer, that tells me schizophrenia. And if schizophrenias don't have their medication, they go off on edge, they're liable to do physical, violent stuff. I'm thankful that nobody got hurt and it was just an idol or a piece of concrete versus somebody's life. And they said that he was in training to be a Christian minister and that he was a devout Christian and his mother had no idea what was going on. So, I don't know. You know, there's a lot of games that religious people can play with people's heads, and who knows if the Catholic Church sent them or not. I didn't.
So this guy was in training to be a Christian minister.
That's what his mom said. Yes, sir.
I want to take your report at face value, but I can't even take hers. I remember reading what she said, what she told the police when she said that her son wouldn't do this.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of moot whether she thinks her son would do that or not. Well, we have his car sitting on top of the rubble. We have his confession. We have his urine.
I wonder what Miss Oswald said about Lee Harvey afterwards. My son wouldn't do something like that.
Exactly. Yeah, so I mean, here was a guy that was telling the police that he was a Satanist, and apparently he's telling his mom that he's going to be a Christian minister, and she's very confused. I did read an interesting story about that, and I don't know how much we should be talking about this poor guy, but supposedly he had an accident that caused some issue where according to his mother, and according to the story that I'm reading in the news. And I know not to trust the news because I've been interviewed, I've been shown on the news several times. They got the story wrong every time, so I have no telling how much they got wrong about this. But she said in this story that when he has these breakdowns, whatever prompts that, I don't know, that what he rebels against is his own religion. Doesn't make any sense to me. All right, did you have anything to add to that?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, the point of Christianity is to restrain yourself from doing evil things or to restrain yourself from giving into your animal side. So if he's constantly restraining himself and then he has some kind of mental breakdown where all that crap has to come out, doesn't surprise me. It's like building up steam in a steam valve, and eventually it's got to be let out. So why not go against the thing that you feel is holding you back?
Yeah, now I remember looking at this angle as a kid. I'm thinking if you're in an all dark room and then you light a single candle, that candle is going to be the center of attention on everything. So if you try to make anything, all the way one way, then your one deviation from that is going to stick out like a sore thumb. That people should realize that they're all on a bell curve. And maybe they should strive to lean one way or another. But the further you go to extremes, the more that tendency or that gravity is going to pull you another way. Just being realistic about that. Now, you brought up in your own perspective, and we're not jumping into this too fast. I want to make sure that we've covered everything on the religious rights issue, the court case, all of that. Do we have a time schedule on anything? Any expectations at this point?
Right now we got to wait and see what the religious right's going to do. I mean, we got to see what Governor Fallon's going to do. It's really going to be her actions, and I can't remember the state representative's name. I want to say it's Eric something. and he's the one who originally funded it. But if you look at the symbols that were originally on it, it was Masonic, it was Jewish, and it was also Catholic symbols on it. So that tells me that's where the money came from. So we got to wait and see if they're actually going to erect it or not. I mean, they could talk all day, blah, 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 but until physical actions are taken, we can't take an action against them. And the gentleman,
Okay, you know, go ahead.
the attorney who's leading up the ACLU, his name is Brady Henderson. He was actually my personal attorney until he joined the ACLU, so he's pretty much gonna stick it as far as he trusts me.
Okay. So we don't have any expectations yet. We know that it was apparently it was being funded by Jews and Masons, or Jews, Masons, and Catholics, although the principal contributors or the people behind it were Protestant Christian, weren't they? The people that just said they were going to put it up in the first place?
I believe the state representative was actually Catholic.
Was he? Okay. And it's a funny thing that according to the Chick Tracts, if you get those little religious publications that they put on your windshield wipers, they'll tell you that the Catholics are actually pagan and not Christian at all. Many Protestant Christians will tell you that the Catholics aren't really Christian. And then there's a lot of these Chick Tracts that will tell you that the Masons are satanic.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you have any satanic Masons?
Not that I've ever met. Majority of the time, a lot of Masons, they have to ascribe to a higher power, so I don't see how they're going to be ascribing to a lower power and being a Mason.
I never saw it pictured that way. I believe in a lower power.
I just saw a thing come across a news feed here about the Satanic Temple submits coloring books and fact sheets in Orlando. It looks like it was from a loosely associated same group as your group. Is that? Do you know anything about that?
We are actually quite offended because majority of Satanists and satanic practice won't allow people under the age of 18, and my church personally won't allow anybody over. You gotta be 21 or over, man. Because to us, they need to be able to make a logical decision on what kind of religion they're going to practice, if they're going to practice one at all. And to indoctrinate children in any kind of religion is ridiculous, because you're feeding them things that could hurt them. You're feeding them things that may help them, but the bottom line is they need to grow up. They need to have stories. I'm not saying they don't need to have like a mythology or like comic books have really become the modern day mythology. So why not let them have those? And as far as I'm concerned, when a person turns 18, then go study all the different religions and see which one fits. Because we have to mold children in a logical way. We have to mold children in a way that they can function in the world without having to worry about religion. And so yeah, we're against it, honestly.
Okay. So, but I thought this was the Satanic. I misunderstood. The Satanic Temple is the one that's named as being the one behind the court case, even though that's actually you that's involved in it. What?
Yeah, for our signature, it would have never been put in place. He's the one who got the Indiegogo site going and got the money for it. Okay. But without us, he could have never submitted it. Like, we're two separate organizations, and it's just how it rolls, because they couldn't get anybody else with any type of power backing to sign the paperwork and get the thing rolling.
So, I mean, for the people listening and watching, what is the real difference? I mean, what separates your groups?
Well, the major separation between us is they're atheistic, where we're theistic.
Okay, now that's going to open a whole bunch of questions for me. I'm familiar with the concept of atheistic Satanists, and I understand that. I've actually argued this at a couple of points, because what is the worst thing that Satan ever did? He tried to reason with Jesus, apparently. And so while I would never consider that there was a character with bat wings and cloven hooves or horns or any of that, but there are people who are opposed to faith. And my interpretation of Ahriman the opposer was someone opposed to faith. And much like, Ha-Satan, the enemy, this is the enemy of faith. Again, this is the people that are going against the belief. So I understand the atheist Satanist perspective on that. It's just atheism plus hedonism. But I'm curious about your position. So if you would please give us a real brief, what is a rundown of the different types of Satanism?
Oh, wow. Well, there's atheistic Satanism, as you see with the modern Satanists, specifically like in the Satanic International Network, Church of Satan, the Satanic Temple, and so forth. There's what's called theistic Satanists, and sometimes a group of spiritual Satanists where they believe in demonology and they work with demonology. as entities to help further themselves. Then our traditional Satanists who believe in an actual Satan, normally it's Lucifer, because Satan's really just a title, so use the entity Lucifer as being their one god or the creator god or whatever else. Then there's a whole kind of schisms of people who use Zoroastrian mythology like we do, Vedic Hindu mythology like we do, Sumerian theology. So it gets, once you get into the point where you introduce a type of worship or a type of devotion, it really splits off just like every other religion does.
Okay, now I did read from something you'd written before that your group had like a combination of Ahriman, Zoroastrian, Ahrimanic Zoroastrianism, then Zurvanism, which I'm not familiar with, I'm surprised, Vedic Hinduism, and Yazidism. And Yazidism is the only kind of Satanism that I thought was really interesting because it was such a dramatic departure from everything we usually see. Can you describe Yazidis for audience?
Yazidi is also known modern day as the Kurdish folks from Iraq and Iran. How they view things is they don't say who the creator god is, but the creator god created God. And Malik Taus, which is the peacock angel, and in Islam is known as Ifrit or Shaitan, was made first and above everything else. And God told him, do not bow down to anything. Then he created man out of clay. Malik Taus refused to bow down to man, and that's what made him the adversary. Because he refused to follow an order that he was already given. It's really weird.
Yeah, and so the Yazidis have this interesting thing where they're viewing what everybody else recognizes as the Satan character, but they're not seeing it as a fallen angel. They're seeing it as somebody who refused God's commandment at first, refusing to bow to a created being, but would only bow to God himself. And so God redeemed that angel immediately because the angel would still show reverence to God. So their version of Satan is not a fallen angel, but is still an archangel. I know that that pounds heads against everybody else in that area who sees things completely differently, and it's surprising to me how mythologies closely related can come up with such dramatically different perspectives.
It's surprising considering the Protestant and Catholics. I mean, look at where they ended. I think that the surprising thing is that there are as many Satanists of the different types that people like you and I are, and who try to make it our job and our livelihood to understand this stuff. We just don't know that much about it. We're not plugged into that side of theology in general.
Well, let me hit another aspect of this. Yeah, let me hit another angle on this. The way the Yazidis view what I'm going to have to say is the Satan character, Malik Taus, the peacock angel, is that he is still an archangel, is still a good and heavenly being. He's an archangel. So they're a form of Satanism that doesn't have any kind of attachment to evil or hell or any of the other associated mythology. But Dastur Daniels, your group does. So the first question that I have to ask for you is, do you have a reverence for evil, and how do you define evil?
Do we have a reverence? I wouldn't say we. To us, evil is freedom. I'm not going to allow any man, being, book, paper, anything else to describe to me how I'm going to do what I do. We say evil thought, evil speech, evil action. We mean freedom to do what we want by our own decision. What a lot of people don't understand about how we do things is we still are our own God in this realm. We have to take responsibility for everything that we do, everything that we say, everything that we think. That is up to us. It is our responsibility to deal with. We also have to understand that we have to take responsibility for all these things. To us, the religion is working with the different types of Hindu entities along with the different types of Persian entities in order to empower ourselves to help us attain our goals physically as we give them devotional energy to attain their goals spiritually.
Okay. Now, when we met a few days ago, I told you that we had disagreement on secular grounds and religious rights and all like this, and we do, and I do respect your efforts there. However, as I am, an out and open atheist and epistemist and all like this, I'm obviously going to have an issue with any kind of a faith-based belief. So I'm going to want to argue right away on this. I mean, I've argued against all different types of believers. It's the first time I've ever had an opportunity to have a discussion with a Satanist about why do you believe any of this? And the first thing that I'd be curious about is if you believe in the devil character that you do, however you identify that, what would you identify as the opposing force for that?
Well, it's actually twofold. When you look at Zervanism, you have Zervan, who sacrificing the essence of the universe, to put it easily, we'll put it in the Hindu terms, Purusha. And through his sacrifices, he was trying to create the sun, which is known as Ahura Mazda. Because of the doubt over after all the sacrifices, the devil also became prevalent alongside Ahura Mazda. They were the twins and so on and so on. So to us, we're opposing all those that are considered righteous. So, for example, for those who know that much about religious history, the Catholic Church is mostly founded on Mithraism. And if Mithra is already an opposing angel, an opposing God to us anyway, it just leads right up the line of what would be considered opposing. Any religion that wants to stifle your thoughts, wants to stifle your actions, wants to stifle the way you live, that's the opposing.
Okay, so a lot of people would view, Satanism, if you believe in the devil, then you must believe in God, and this is not two equal forces, that you have a superior character, and that seems to be justified by the mythology that all these things come from. So you're saying that that's not the case?
No, because if you actually read into what it's saying, and you also look at an occultist named Rudolf Steiner, what it talks about is creating infinite or finite evil in an infinite spectrum. So if the original devil and the original god of Ahura Mazda were to ever embrace, it would create a destruction and chaotic mess in the universe, and whoever survived would be the one taking over. So it's an equal opposing force. It's when you get into Christianity, it having its power taken away more and more and more. And obviously the Catholics took it down to the devil basically being Pan, which is a pretty benign Greek god.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I guess I'm still confused with how do you come to the idea that any of this is true at all?
Well, when I first started out in Satanism, I was actually an atheistic Satanist. I was with the Church of Satan for, what was it, Kelsey, about 5-6 years? And through ritual practice, that's where the belief began. And then doing a deeper study into where the original devil lied is what brought me to Zoroastrianism. And when you study how Zoroastrian puts it together, it actually goes into Vedic Hinduism, because Zarathustra demonized the Hindu gods, along with several Persian gods as well.
Okay, I'm really sorry somebody was talking to me like this. I apologize. I'm going to have to ask that same question again. My apologies.
No, that's fine.
You went from an atheist, converted to believing in Satan. How?
Well, Ahriman, yes.
Well, whichever name, Melech Taos, Ahriman, Angra Mainyu, whichever one you like.
Yes, through ritual practice and studying and learning exactly where the devil came from, his origins were, and then how Zoroastrian was put together by demonizing a lot of the Vedic Hindu gods, along with different Persian gods. And like I said, ritual practice is what led me to that belief.
Okay, the part I'm missing is where do you get the indication that any of this is actually true? Because I mean, I did the same thing. I did the research on the ancient mythologies and everything, but it remained mythology. There was never a point at which I thought, well, maybe these demonized Hindu Vedic characters were actually real. I mean, I would love there to be a Hanuman the monkey god, but just reading the stories about that isn't going to convince me that that's true.
No, it was doing the ritualized practice, like I said. It was working with the entities, how the energy felt, how different things changed in the room. I mean, we even have recorded videos of orbs and stuff in our workings. And it's a personal belief. I'm not trying to bring this out to anybody. I'm just trying to build a tolerance for anybody who has an alternative religion. How we do things in-house is on us. Our public message is to educate people on alternative religions, so they're not, running away scared, oh, the devil's going to kill me, or we're going to lose our jobs or anything else in society.
Understood. And I have much the same goal. I mean, I want people to have a bit of tolerance for different perspectives. But I also have, as an epistovist, I have this natural objection to faith, and so this is why I start looking for reasons why people believe what they do. I don't care what you believe, I only care why you believe it. And so for me, I have a history of when I get religious guests on the show, I'm going to inquire about what they believe and why. And it doesn't matter what that belief is. I mean, it would be hypocritical of me to have a Satanist on and not berate them for what they believe and why.
Sure.
Okay, so I mean, I'm looking for evidence behind the conclusion.
The only evidence I can give you behind any conclusion is personal reaction and how you interact with what's going on. And that's all subjective to the individual. Okay.
And we don't have anything more on that. Do you have anything else we can talk about as far as the equal rights court cases that you've got going on in Oklahoma or anywhere else?
As it stands, I've really backed off a lot of things. My people are the one keeping up with what's going on in Oklahoma, and I am building, I guess what you would call a liturgy to the church, and then we will be sitting forward with our main ritual, hopefully by January. And then we're going to use that to go against the Catholic Church again, probably around the same time next year, just in a different way. We're going to keep moving forward to sensitize the public, and if anything else pops off that we find within the realm, say Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Colorado, New Mexico, that we can stick our nose in and it's causing trouble, we will most likely do it.
Okay, so I read a bit about your Black Mass, and it was described as specifically it was a rejection of Christianity, and I was a little surprised at that too. Why is it an objection to Christianity exclusively? Why is it not also an objection to Islam and any other faith?
Well, the way the ritual is built is to essentially to take the consecrated host, which you don't really have to have a consecrated host because it actually calls for a turnip or a piece of black bread. The purpose is profaning what they consider Jesus Christ. And the Black Mass, when LaVey wrote it, was specifically designed to get the Christianity out of himself and out of his followers. It's a deprogramming device because anytime you're involved in any religion, they're going to program you to act and be a certain way that they expect. So what it is, it's a rejection of that programming and pushing that programming out of your subconscious mind. And that one specifically focuses on Catholicism because at the time, I think LaVey came out of a Catholic background, and that's why he was trying to push it out of himself. The ritual that I'm working on now will be rejecting both Islam and Zoroastrianism, since those two are usually the closest.
Okay, so when you talk about rejecting religion, I mean, you're in a religion.
Yes. But everybody knows when they're coming in that we are programming ourselves the way we want to be programmed, and that's no secret to our people.
Okay, well, it may not be a secret to them, but it's a complete mystery to me.
Oh, okay.
Because I would like to see people not programmed to anything.
Well, I can see why you won't being an atheist. I can understand that.
No, we're for free thought. What free thought means is that we don't have required beliefs. We don't have prohibited beliefs. You're literally free to believe whatever you like. There's no requirement there. If you state that you believe something, as a skeptic, you're going to be expected to say why you believe that, and it should be verifiable reasons. I don't know. It's just a judgment call there. So again, your position complete mystery to me, and I'm sure you're used to hearing that.
Well, the first thing you have to do is you have to empty the cup, as they say in martial arts term. If you have a half cup full, 3/4, you have to empty the cup. You have to help people get rid of that. You have to open the mind. You have to open the subconscious mind and the conscious mind and understanding how the two work. Once that process is done, once we get people through that and we get them through the education of the different mythologies that we use and how they combine and work, they have an opportunity to either join the church or go on. The point of what we try to instill in people are the ideals that you find in a book like Might is Right, ideals you find in the book of the 48 Laws of Power, ideals that you find in that you're free to do whatever you want, but you have to take responsibility for it, and you also have to work within your nature. So if you go out and you do something and you feel bad about it, you won't do it, and you probably should not. But if you go out and do something that people might question, but it's okay by you, then continue to do so. That allows them their own voice, their own speech, their own actions, but they also have to understand that they are responsible for every bit of it.
If you're taking the approach that you're a theistic Satanist, then all what you're saying now sounds weirdly humanistic to me, in the idea that you allow yourself to do the things that you feel and that you feel are natural in a person. So I mean, how does the theistic side of believing in Satan and other powers, how does that play into it?
Good question. How it plays into it is when you're dealing with things like evocations, invocations, however you want to announce it or deal with it, you are giving devotional energy. And with this church, there's a lot of sexual energy given off as an offering to the entities that you're working with. You give them the energy, and it's very much like Hinduism. You give them the energy in exchange for what we call favor or spiritual help. And usually that is building and emboldening and empowering yourself to go accomplish your goals. This is my goal. This is what I need help with. Give me that help to accomplish it. And those practices are what get that, to happening. Does that make more sense?
So it's like prayer in a way that you're offering, instead of your attention, like in a prayer, you're offering your energy in return for some kind of blessing, I guess, in for lack of a better term.
Blessing is fine if you want to use it that way. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I don't use blessing, because to me, I have to define the terms that I use and what they mean. And blessing, I have to figure out what the word means and then use it appropriately. And when I ask believers what a blessing is, they're very seldom able to describe it. But eventually I piece together the blessing is literally a magical enchantment. And that's literally what it is. So when people say bless you after you sneeze, they're telling you, I magically enchant thee. That's essentially what they're saying. I don't believe in magic. I don't believe in enchantments. And when you're talking about emptying the glass, I'm thinking, okay, you're emptying the glass of all the nonsense, of all the faith-based beliefs, of all the dogma, all of the doctrine, all of the nonsense that they filled in there. Now you've got an empty glass. It should be filled, I would think, with factual knowledge, but instead we've got it filled with more ritual and more belief systems and more mythology. And so that's where I'm having a problem with it.
Okay. Well, like, most Buddhists are atheists, correct? Not all, but most.
What?
Most Buddhists are atheists, correct?
I don't know what the percentages are.
Okay. But they use what they call mantras. Mantras are basically prayers that they repeat over and over again to program their subconscious mind. The majority of our stuff are called mantras, which is what mantra comes from, and has to help those people program their subconscious mind. The entities that we use in these represent, and it's a symbology of what they represent, and that's what opens the different aspects of the subconscious mind. I'm not saying that a spirit is going to come down, augment me with something, and create a thing. What I'm doing is I'm opening a channel in my subconscious mind by this representative symbol to allow to empower myself and allow myself to accomplish my goal. It's very delicate when you're working with symbology, stuff like sigils and so forth, and you get into what Carl Jung was doing with man and his symbols. That's a lot of what the occult is doing to empower yourself by opening aspects of the subconscious mind that you wouldn't normally have access to, and it's done through repetition.
Well, see, that's the problem I have with it. I don't like knee-jerk conditioned responses, and I'm guilty of some of that myself. For example, every time I hear you say the word symbology, I am driven to utter the lines. I think the word you're searching for is symbolism. What is the symbolism? I'm, of course, taking that from an old movie. But none of this is making any sense to me. Mark, you got anything on this?
I'm just I don't, obviously, as an atheist, I reject, all of this as well. But what I'm trying to understand is just the pieces of why you believe it, even if I don't believe it. And I'm curious of more of another thing. You did bring up the word occult. So how does the occult, in what everybody, explain it to us, like what it means to you, but from the people on the outside, we think of the word occult as inherently, magic and all that. I mean, is that a part of your lifestyle, I suppose?
A lifestyle. I don't know if I would call it a lifestyle so much. When you're working with, let's define a occult first. Occult means knowledge hidden within plain sight. And to us,
Wait, what?
Knowledge hidden in plain sight.
That's occult.
Occult, yes.
Wow, because I dabbled in the occult quite a bit when I was a kid, and I remember saying things like that it was things that you could see just beyond the limits of your eye, your physical eye. You'd have to see it with your third eye or your psychic eye. But I wouldn't say that it's knowledge in plain sight. It's clearly not knowledge, because the problem that I have with that is the definition of knowledge. Knowledge is not just a belief, but it's a justified belief. It's something that you can verify. As I so often say, if you can't show it, you don't know it. So how does a religious belief qualify as knowledge?
Like I said, it goes back to personal perspective and how you've interacted with the things that you're dealing with. I mean, did you just get me on here to slaughter me, or why exactly do you have me on here?
I had you on because I thought we were going to be able to get more meat out of the whole discussion with the Oklahoma City case and the Black Mass and the religious protests that you were getting over there. But as I said, when we met up last week, I said we're also going to talk about this other thing about what you believe and why. And so my next question would be, what is it that is appealing about your belief system, or that you think would invite other people? Why are people coming into your and I'll extend the same question for other people of other religions. It doesn't matter what religion, because none of them have an appeal to me. That's just where I am at the onset. It has nothing to do with slaughtering you, sir. But go ahead, explain if you would, please.
I don't see any point in explaining it at this point.
Okay, well that's fine. And if this has not been a good experience for you, well then I don't know what to say about that. But we were going to have to talk about faith and about beliefs and what was the foundation of your beliefs at some point anyway. So
I agree, but as I'm trying to explain things, you like to interrupt and talk over me. So what is the point in asking me questions if you're not going to allow me to finish my answer?
Oh, I wasn't aware that I was doing that. I'm not going to say that I didn't do that, because I've been accused of doing that before. Maybe you're correct. Maybe that's what I did. I'll go back and watch the tape. Please continue.
There's nothing else to continue, sir.
Okay. All right. Well, Dastur Adam Daniels, is there anything else that you'd like to say to direct people to where you are, or what you do, or what they should look up if they want to follow on after the show?
No, I don't think so. I don't want to deal with any of that. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, and good night. And Mark, was I rude to our guest?
I don't think you were rude. I think that because, I mean, if we had a Christian on here, somebody that we know a lot about their theology, there may be a lot. I mean, we had a lot of open-ended questions that he just wasn't prepared to respond to. I mean, why do you believe this? Where did you get this information? Why is this appealing? I mean, those are things that he should be able to answer, and he wasn't able to answer.
Yeah, it's funny.
I don't think you were rude.
Yeah, it's funny because we had dinner the other night, and it was funny. We're at this big after event thing, and he was there, and we're sitting next to each other. So this is frustrating because I got so many questions, but when we get on the show, I want it to be fresh, So I'm not going to ask you these things now. I'm going to ask you when we get on the show. And I told him to expect an asshole. I told him to expect that I'm going to ask you why you believe all of this stuff, and I brought up to him then that if you're talking to a Christian here in this country, and you're already familiar not only with what the Bible says, but also how much of Christianity ignores what the Bible says, you have a kind of a flavor for their belief system, and you know already what they reject as well as what they expect, and so you know how to jump in on them. Islam, we tend not to attack so much if we don't know as much about it. And if I were to read the Quran, for example, and I don't know how much of it that's in the Quran, it's much like with the Bible. If I don't know what's in the Quran that say Muslims completely ignore, like look at all the stuff that's in the Bible that Christianity absolutely ignores, right? Exodus 21 through 23, right? All of that. They don't pay attention to a word of it. So right. It doesn't matter. I mean, Leviticus 17, everything. I mean, you got so much in the Bible that you can talk about. You either get blank stares from the Christians or say, well, we just dismissed that because Jesus made a new covenant or whatever. All of that is meaningless. So it doesn't matter that you read the document. You have to understand the culture behind it too. So you have to talk to the believer behind the book. It's not enough. You couldn't read the Bible and understand what Christians believe. You have to talk to Christians. The Bible will not tell you anything about the difference between Pentecosts and evangelicals and Calvinists and Catholics and so forth. You have to talk to the believers to figure out, how do you come up with this crap, right?
Right, and it's like I was saying, it's the less we know as people on here about the subject matter, the more open-ended and upper level the questions are going to be, and he couldn't even really answer those. I mean, but I don't think you were rude. I think you did a good job. I was just trying to and I think you were being more poignant and more, not poignant, but more pointed with your questions about why do you believe this? And I was just kind of trying to say, this is what I've heard about Satanism. Is this a true thing? That's kind of how I was going. And he wasn't really answering either of those in a way that I would say was sufficient.
Yeah, and it's upsetting because I didn't, I don't want to seem like I was being completely disrespectful. I would think that if you're a Satanist and you come on anybody's show, that you're going to expect them to be disrespectful. But, I wasn't going to be that guy. This isn't Jerry Springer. This isn't Oprah. I wasn't going to be, jumping into this guy the way that they do. But, I mean, I do have sincere questions. Now, if somebody comes to explain Hinduism to someone who's never heard of the concept before, and then you start explaining, about Krishna consciousness and the three gods being together, and the creator and the destroyer and the preserver, and you start getting into all of that mythology, if you're not already familiar with it, if it's not part of your culture, you're going to back away from that and say, well, that's a bunch of crazy crap, right? And anytime you get some unfamiliar religion, like Sikh, for example, if we're not familiar with Sikh, and we hear if you were raised in a completely Christian culture, and maybe you know vaguely that there's Muslims out there, but they somehow revere the same concept of God and some of the same mythologies, and then you get somebody like a Sikh, right, where it's foundationally different. Well, then you don't know what to do with that.
You don't even know what questions to ask. And I mean, that's what we were doing. We were coming up with the questions as we heard the information.
No, I did research on it. I looked up what he'd said before in other places. I tried to get a perspective on how can I talk to this guy, and he seems like a nice enough guy, just as a and so many people do. But when you start prying into their minds, you're going to find stuff that you disagree with. Right?
Right. Yeah, and you're right. I mean, he seemed like a nice enough dude. I just don't think he was as prepared to answer the questions, because he probably doesn't get real questions that often. He probably gets dismissal. He probably gets hate. So if we're just asking real questions, it can really. I mean, it kind of derailed a little bit, but I don't think it was your fault. So I mean, don't beat yourself up too bad. That's what I'm saying, Aaron.
Yeah, well, it's just a little strange that you get a Satanist on the show, and I'm still the bad guy.
You look the most Satanist of anybody I know, too. So next week, everybody, Aaron is not going to be on the show. He's going to be reminiscing old motorbiking days. And what we're going to do is we're going to have the same show at the same time, except for instead of Aaron and I, it'll be Teresa McBain, who some of you may know is a clergy project graduate and has been around the secular community for a while, and myself. She's going to be guest hosting with me, and we're going to talk to a gentleman who is fresh out of the clergy project, and he has not spoken publicly about his atheism and his movement out of the church and his leaving the church and leaving the pulpit because he wasn't a practicing minister. He's been an atheist for a while, and he's out. It's not a secret, but he hasn't really been on a podcast or anything yet. So we're going to talk to him about that. It's going to be on my YouTube channel instead of Aaron's, and I have almost no followers. So if you want to know about that and watch it live, you'll have to follow the Facebook page, the Ramen Podcast Facebook page on Facebook, or follow our Twitter feed at the Ramen Podcast to get that link. Of course, it'll still be available on Stitcher and Spreaker and iTunes and all the places you find us, but if you want to watch it live, you're going to have to watch it on my page instead of Aaron's. So thank you for joining us. Thank you to Bedtime Bible Stories for sponsoring us. And Aaron, do you have anything else to say before you take your week off in the desert?
Yeah, well, it's not actually a week off. I'm actually speaking at ASU on.
Hey, if you're not on this podcast, you're off, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I'm speaking in Phoenix on Friday, the 14th of November, and then I'm speaking in Tucson on the following Sunday, 10 in the morning, I believe it is, at University of Arizona Medical Center. And there's links on my channel on my webpage, rnrod.com. I just want to make one last comment about the guest. I mean, again, I wasn't trying to be rude. I would like to be as respectful as possible. There was a couple of things that he said that I completely agreed with, like that you don't indoctrinate children at an early age. Wholly respect that.
Yeah, I thought we were going right down the same road when he was talking about that. I think, and that it was kind of weird that he said he didn't want to indoctrinate kids. He didn't want to have anybody under 21 in their church. But it was like, and then later he said, I want to fill the cup back up with all this crap. You know, I thought that was strange.
Yeah, well, yeah. What do you do with that? I mean, so I want to acknowledge where I agree. And there were some times that he sounded like a secularist, and sometimes he sounds like a humanist, and sometimes he sounds like a libertarian. I can't make out what he is, and I apologize if my inquiries were taken as rude. That wasn't, you know, I wasn't bringing the guy on here to, as he put it, slaughter him. And I don't know why that's bothering me so much. Anyway.
Well, I think that people have brought you on the shows to try to slaughter you unsuccessfully, but so you know kind of how that feels. But
okay,
you know, maybe,
all right,
maybe
well, everybody,
stick with you.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and close the broadcast. Thank you, and good night.
Good night, everybody.